Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saaghe Fogwe podcast. I hope you're comfortable. I hope you're sitting somewhere. You have a book, you have a pen, and ready to take some notes because today's show is going to be wonderful. I have a very good friend who's joining me today to educate us, give us some tips on financial stability and wealth building. I know you guys have seen my videos. You've seen me talk about this stuff, but I am no expert. I'm bringing up someone who knows a little bit more about this and has been around, and he's doing a lot of things in the community with these concepts. So I wanted to have this conversation today so that people can get another perspective of, how we can be financially stable and continue that journey of wealth building. So I'm not going to steal the thunder from him. I'm going to bring him up here, my good friend, Mr. Paul Facchina. Let's see if my technology here is going to work. There we go. We're still learning technology together. Welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a heck of an intro. I don't know if I'm going to live up to those expectations.
Oh, you will. You will. You know more than the host, so you're going to live up to it.
A lot of pressure here. I don't know. I'll do my best.
Welcome, Paul. So for those who don't know you and who want to really get a little bit of insight on who we're talking to today, to make sure that you're a real person, not a robot. I didn't use any AI here.
I do exist. I do.
Yes, he exists. So please introduce yourself to everyone, just so that if they see you on the street, they know who they're talking to, who they listen to on my show.
Thank you. My name is Paul Facchina, and I'm relatively new to Texas. Moved here 3 years ago from originally Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Grew up in a beautiful little town of Southern Maryland called La Plata, Maryland. Very, very green, rolling hills, excellent community. It was very hard to leave that area. Was born and raised in the heavy civil construction arena. My father started Facchina Construction in 1987 as I was entering college. So I spent most of my life learning and being involved in a very difficult, harsh environment, the construction industry. I mean, we had a big company that we did concrete frames, structural concrete. I mean, I ran an infrastructure division. So I learned from my father how to run business, every aspect of the business, the financing. I was actually in the field all through college. So I'm a blue collar guy. My hands are calloused, and I poured concrete. I laid pipe. I learned how to run a business from the ground up. And I think that experience is what has propelled me in my future and the businesses that I owned. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I've done. You and I have already touched on those things, but it's really the blue collar, hard nosed upbringing that has made me what I am today.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, a few, connections there that I didn't even know that you were from the Maryland area, because my first entrance into the United States was through the Maryland area. I was there for 2 weeks, and then went to Minnesota. Lived in Minnesota for 9 years before moving to Texas. So then our paths have met in Texas. So that's how I get to meet you.
Texas is a wonderful state. Again, I'm ingrained in the community here, do a lot of philanthropy work that you and I have discussed. I'm part of the advisory board of Freed People. Freed People is an organization that is the tip of the spear. We're the ones that are out in the field right now rescuing kids from human sex trafficking. In fact, Freed People, started by Matt Shelton, they're the organization that actually located the girl that was abducted from the Mavs game a couple of years ago. So they're doing amazing work. The organization is growing. It's very sad to see what the evil that's in the world right now as we are talking. 79,000 people are being sex trafficked in Texas alone. So the industry is larger than the airline industry, but organizations like Freed, F-R-E-E-D, people.org, check them out. Amazing organization doing amazing things. And then I'm also part of Second Chance Mentors. My friend Sean Surfass, who was incarcerated, got out of jail, and really realized that he's called to mentor troubled youth. So we're heavily involved in mentoring kids and trying to get them back on the straight and narrow. So that's secondchance.org, another great organization. So Texas has really just been very good to me. I love it here. I love the people. It truly is a wonderful place.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, those are some organizations that we really need, because all the stuff that's happening that we don't know about. And nonprofit is is my passion. That I think I've talked to you about that, where I said even if I never worked a regular job, I would probably be doing some kind of nonprofit. So organizations like that are really close to my heart. But since you kind of already started talking about some of your projects, just tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that you're doing. So people that's part of getting to know who Paul is. You've talked about a couple of them. Just talk about some of those projects that you're doing, other projects that you're doing.
Well, what we're going to talk about a little bit today is the financial literacy course that I developed and that I present. And actually, last time I presented it was to the kids of Second Chance Mentors. So with my previous life, the Facchina Construction was sold in 2014. After the company was sold, I started a construction management firm and worked with some of the clients that I had on the construction side. And we were heavily in the real estate development, commercial, residential. And after the company was sold, my life was turned upside down. I really didn't have an idea what I was going to do. Everything I ever did was construction. It was Facchina construction every day, my entire life, during my adult life. So we're going to talk about this financial literacy course, but when this course was birthed, part of it is my journey through adversity and the disciplines that I had learned that correlate back to money. But this journey that in this seminar that I present to church youth groups and to schools, it's more important than money, because really what this proves is you're not going to be able to handle money if you can't handle life.
Yes.
Some people think money is going to solve their problems. But if you don't have the right mentality, all money's going to be is another burden and another problem for you.
Yeah.
So this journey that I went on, where everything was different. The company was sold. There I am. I don't even know what I'm going to do. Next thing I know, I start my first business. And it was nice. I enjoyed it, right? I was doing what I knew how to do. But you're a faithful woman. We've talked about that. We've shared how Christ has impacted our life. And with me, before I even knew it, I had the opportunity to buy my first franchise, a Sky Zone. All right, Sky Zone indoor trampoline parks. They're the ones that invented the whole interlocking trampoline systems, and they developed an entire industry. Well, as only divine appointment would have it, I wound up finding myself in one for my son's 9th birthday, and I was in one for 1 hour and decided I'm going to buy one. I didn't even know anything about franchising. I knew nothing. But when God has got you on a path that you don't even understand that you're really on, the doors are open. He's going to bless you, but you got to work hard. You got to do things, and you got to overcome adversity. And you got to have these disciplines in place. So I wound up buying my first franchise, a Sky Zone. It was amazingly successful. So I bought another territory and built another one. But the important thing is nobody ever taught me about franchising. Nobody ever taught me how to do a bank loan, to negotiate with banks. Nobody taught me how to negotiate a commercial lease at the time. I knew construction, that's what I knew, and I knew how to lead people because of the leadership role I had at Facchina Construction. But the rest of it came from having these disciplines in life, this structure, understanding the power of money, and trusting God, but working hard and getting it done. And the interesting thing about this entire literacy course called Get Up and Go Get It, that's what it's entitled to, that's my mantra, is when I had Sky Zones, my rule when I was in the parks, and I was in and out of them all the time, was if there was a church that came in or a mentor group, and if they came in and I was in the park, my team knew to come get me because I wanted to introduce myself, because I had special programs and pricing for mentor groups and for churches, because God provided for me, I'm going to give it back, right?
Yeah.
That's the way that works.
Yes.
Well, I met this guy named Raymond at Sky Zone. He had a mentor program, and they were in there. And Raymond is the kind of guy that I met, and boom, energy. You feel energy. I'm an energy guy. If you got bad energy, just sorry, stay away.
Stay away from me.
Anyway, because I'm an energy person. Well, Raymond and I just struck up a conversation, and Raymond was the one that challenged me. I said, hey, is there anything I can do for your kids? Talk to them or whatever. You just let me know. Well, Raymond said, hey, we're talking to our kids right now about money, finance. And that's all he told me to do. And so what I did is I said, okay, bring them in on a Saturday. I'll set up a party room and I'll come in and talk to them, and I'll come up with something about money, and I'll give them free pizza and they'll jump for free. Whatever. We'll do a little program. So it was this one-off conversation with Raymond and I sat down literally at my kitchen table and came up with the basic program of what I teach now. And this was 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I walked in there, never have presented anything like this before. And it was an hour-long program. And at the end of that, I'm like, hey, Raymond, how was it, man? Did it work? He's like, man, you just touched on everything we've been trying to teach you.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, this whole entire program was birthed, and we're touching and changing lives.
Wow. It's amazing. I mean, financial literacy is so important because we go to school, we know the traditional education, but the financial literacy stuff is not taught. The basics are not taught. I was a staff accountant for 10 years before switching over to be a medical professional or to go become a nurse, then become a nurse practitioner. And I never knew some of the concepts that I'm learning now, like based on a little license that I have, from the state. I call it a little license because it had to take me going through adversity like you, going through life, finding out stuff, and I'm still discovering stuff today because I don't know it all, and that's why I'm still looking for information. So that course that you're doing is so important. I don't know if anybody sees the value in it the way I just looking through it. I saw the value in that because you talk about everything. You talk about becoming successful, the traits that people need to have to become successful. Let's unpack that a little bit and then as a Christian person, coming from a Christian perspective, why would anybody want to be successful? That's the question, because I grew up being taught that humility and poverty were almost synonymous. Being humble and poor, it showed that you were a good Christian. In a way, not in those words, but showing off was not really showing off, but being successful, excessively successful, was almost like you were showing off, but it wasn't. So there had to be a balance. So please unpack that a little bit about the traits of becoming successful and why it's important for people to even think about being successful?
Well, I mean, again, I've laid out a couple of traits to be successful, but you just, I mean, something just clicked in my head when you brought this up. And I do other podcasts. My friend Sean Surface, he's got this Forgiven AF, Always Faithful podcast. I've been on his several times, and we touch on a lot of the same principles, right? First, I want to tell you the interesting thing is when I present this thing to the kids, I always invite parents to stay. You would not believe how many parents come up to me afterwards and say, I didn't even know this. Mm-hmm. And this is basic, right? This is not high level. You know what I mean? I'm not teaching high level because one of the biggest problems, most people's, the first question is, hey, what stock should I buy? What should I do? Something like, you're not buying anything until you got these basics down. Yeah. You can't skip from JV football to the NFL. It just doesn't work that way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's first and foremost, that a lot of adults end up, now again, a lot of them are a little shy about it because they don't want to be embarrassed, but a lot of them are like taking notes and writing stuff down because it is basic. But the other thing is you're talking about poverty and humility, right? One of the interesting things that I've noticed is I grew up in Southern Maryland. Right now, as we speak, in parts of Southern Maryland, there are people that live without running water. Wow. So I grew up, there was no uber wealthy. It was poor, because there's people with no running water, but then it was lower middle, or upper middle. I never saw uber wealthy until I got out of college, where I grew up. Now, my father's been extremely successful, but even coming to Texas, I had spent some time in Florida and I saw uber wealthy. In Texas, I have a couple friends that I'm in a Bible group with that are what I would consider uber wealthy. And one of the things that I've learned now, because I'm around them now, is it's a dichotomy between survival instincts and being in a thriving environment. And when you have to survive, when your default mode is survival, scarcity, when you have that mentality, you don't even know how you're handicapping yourself because you have a scarcity mentality. But in lower middle class and poverty stricken, they don't understand how to even talk about thriving because they don't know where their meals are coming from. Mm-hmm. And that dichotomy is why the wealthy stay wealthy. Mm-hmm. It should, because they don't even understand, and it goes back to the humility trait. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that uber wealthy people aren't humble, but what they lack is empathy. Mm-hmm. Most of them sympathize. They sympathize because they give their money. But they can never relate to something because they grew up in a thriving mentality, in a thriving world. Mm-hmm. So it's important for people at a younger age to understand this, because the sooner you can switch from survival to thriving is when the lights come on and every opportunity to achieve wealth happens. Yeah. So that's where the importance is. And that's why this stuff needs to be taught in schools. I cannot believe we're not doing it. Yeah. So, but you're talking about the traits, and you named the first one, humility. See, I believe humility is important. Humility teaches you that, guess what? You're not number one. If you're always number one, you're not going to learn anything. Yeah. And I tell people when I'm serving, if you're only serving yourself, you're not serving. Mm-hmm. So yes, and I'm talking about money. If you're not humble with your money, you're going to fail. I'm just telling you that right now. Mm-hmm. Humility is part of life, and it will make you a better planner with your money. Yeah. The other one is discipline, right? You know what I mean? To have discipline. And what discipline is, it's the bridge between your goals and your accomplishment. That's the bridge. That is what discipline does. And discipline is waking up and doing the things that you need to do day in, day out without people noticing, without a selfie. without anybody knowing, right?
And whether you like it or not, whether you feel like it or not.
Correct. Absolutely. You got to be disciplined. Like me, I'm 55. I get up 6 days a week and work out. And sometimes I don't want to do it. My body hurts. I'm old. I'm an old man, right?
Oh.
But I do it every day. You know why? Because the alternative is I have health problems.
Yeah.
The alternative is I don't look the way I want to look. So it takes discipline. And money is discipline. If you're not disciplined with your money, if you're just going to be loose with it, don't expect anything good.
Yeah.
Right? And the other part of discipline is being focused and not fearful.
Yep.
So a lot of people live in fear, and what I always said is fear is the acronym for false evidence appearing real. That's fear. You psych yourself out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens. Oh, I can't, or that's too much to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, no, that you're living fearful. That's that scarcity mentality.
And it's the opposite of faith, because if you have faith, there's no fear, right? Faith over fear, it overshadows it if you have faith, and we're all guilty of getting there until we remind ourselves to draw away from the fear. I'm guilty of it. Once in a while, I have that fear, or the fear of going back to old ways, or the fear of poverty, or the fear, just those little fears pop up once in a while, but we have to remind ourselves. Yeah.
Well, look, that's natural. I mean, first off, I do a lot of reading. I love history. I read a lot about our founding fathers because I wanted to understand what leadership was. John Adams sat in France while we're trying to get them to help fund the Revolutionary War, and he had bouts of depression. So here's one of the most influential people in the history of America that had doubt, right? That's what that showed me. But what you need to do is you have to overcome it, right? That's what you can't be fearful. You have to overcome it, and you're going to have some rough storms. And look, believe me, I've been there, going through one right now, but you just got to keep going, right? You can't be fearful. You have to be focused. Henry Ford said, obstacles are what one sees when one takes their eyes off of their goal. You have to be focused, and you have to be relentless and just continue to focus and know that you're going to achieve that. Yeah. I mean, that's the important thing. And then which goes into a work ethic. Today, I mean, again, I'm not picking on this generation, but I've never seen so many lazy people. Everybody wants something given to them. We're in the world of entitlement now. This is the age of
gimme.
Not only give me, but you know what? I'm going to sit right here, and it's going to come to me.
And you bring it to me on a gold platter.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's fast. You're hungry, you can get it. Now it's Uber Eats. You don't have to go out and eat and get your food.
I'm guilty of that.
Uber Eats. Oh my goodness, it's gluttony in a car right now. It's unbelievable. And no offense to Uber Eats, but I don't order Uber Eats. I'm going to tell you that right now. But you have to have a work ethic. Me, I grew up until I was 18 years old. I thought my name was Get Wood. All right, that's all I was doing. I was cutting wood. I mean, my father had me pouring concrete, and my friends are at the beach party. Oh. I went to college. College was my break. That's why I got good grades. I'm like, I know what's out there. It taught me what real work ethic is. Yeah. I was working 12 hours a day in a metro station. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're pouring concrete, loading trash. You want to learn about work ethic, getting up at 4 a.m. when all my friends are going to sleep at 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. We need people that understand the power of a work ethic. Yeah. And then the other problem is with people today, there's a dichotomy between wanting and doing. See, it's a scale. And right now what you have is you got a society that all they do is want. And what you got to realize is the more time you spend wanting, the less time you're doing anything. But flip the scale. If you're out and you're doing things, You're grinding, you're working hard, you're studying hard. That want gets a lot smaller because you're productive. It's not dead time in your head. So go do something. Be productive. Work hard.
Yeah.
And then things will come. But it's just not going to come to you that fast.
Yeah. And there's a planting season, you plant, people want immediate, that immediate gratification as opposed to planting, those seeds and then waiting for it to, to grow later. We think about that immediate, I want it now.
Yeah, no, nobody has any patience. The sower of seeds, again, as a Christian woman, you know the power of that parable. And again, in the nonprofit work that I do with Sean Surface and my fellow board members at Second Chance, we're sowing seeds. And sometimes you see the fruit like that. But there are times we're just never going to see it. But it doesn't mean we don't stop sowing. Right?
And you plant not for yourself. When you plant a tree, you're not going to necessarily sit under that tree, like to use it for shade. You're someone years from now will sit under that tree,
And that was your work. You planted that seed, right?
Yeah.
And then another trait is capacity, right? See, a lot of people right now don't try to increase their capacity. So I use the example of a balloon, right? You get a balloon, it comes out of a package, it's you got all the color in it, and it's just limp. You start blowing the air into it, and the thing blows up. But what does it take to expand that balloon? It takes pressure, and that's our minds. And that's what happens with people is the second you start putting in pressure, they fold up. They don't want pressure. They want comfort. Comfort is a killer. Comfort kills desire. It kills passion. And if your goal is comfort, you got the wrong goal. You need to increase your capacity. And again, you talked about poverty.
Yeah.
Right? People in those areas, unfortunately, it's like crabs in a basket. People are pulling them back and not challenging them to increase their capacity. I mean, it's limitless out here.
Yeah.
But you got to get pushed. You got to have pressure.
Yeah.
To increase that capacity.
Yes.
And then the final one that, again, you've dealt with it. You and I talked about that is what? Get up.
Yeah.
Life is going to kick you down. And if it doesn't, hey, you're lucky, right?
Yep.
But if you're anything like us, real people, I'm not talking about you people that never had adversity, right?
Perfect lives.
Yeah, right. No, it's gonna hurt. But what are you gonna do? You got one or two choices: lay there and quit, or get up and keep going.
And keep going. Yeah.
And that's why I call it get up.
Yep. That punchline, I mean, that's a punchline that anybody, even if they left that lecture without hearing anything else, just get up.
I mean, and here's the thing that I like about people like you. When you and I met, I mean, again, the energy was there, but the authenticity of who we are, because we live what we say. There's a lot of people, and again, in this generation, that they read something and they act like it's their words and they don't even apply it. All they're doing is regurgitating information. They don't live it, and you can tell who's phony and who's not.
Yeah.
But I lived this. I wrote it because it was what I felt and what I experienced. But what I find is the more I talk about it, you and I meeting and becoming friends, what happens? It's like minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's iron sharpen iron. You're back into a biblical principle where you're sharpening each other.
Yep.
And helping each other.
Yep. Yep. Wow. Ooh, this is full. Like it's a lot. That presentation is something that everybody, I think every little group needs to have a taste of this of this presentation, because it is full of a lot of information. And you alluded to the parable in the Bible, right? The parable of the talents. Think
Yes.
about around you, how many people fit into every single one of those servants. You know, if you look around you, you'll see the person who put it under who will put the talent under the mattress. You see the people who are mediocre, who will just do the bare minimum. And then you see the go-getters, those who are going to get up and get at it. So unpack that a little bit for us, why it's important for people, because we're talking in the financial space. That parable can apply to so many different things, right? But in this case, we're talking about in the financial space. Why should people use those talents that they have to keep at it? And you've already kind of touched on it, but let's unpack that parable in terms of where you were going with it when you kind of alluded to it.
Okay, well, what we're talking about is the parable of the three servants. It's Matthew 25, 14 through 30. For anybody that has the Bible app, you can look at it right now. So again, Matthew 25, 14 through 30. And what we're talking about is there's three servants, and we'll just, give the Cliff's Notes. One servant, the master's leaving, he gives three servants some money, right? And he gives one talent, 1, 2, and 1, 5, right? So one guy gets 1, one guy gets 2, and one guy gets 5. He returns. That didn't say when he was going to return. The guy that had 5 doubled it. He made 5 more. The guy that had 2 doubled it. So now he has 4. The guy that had 1 buried it, did nothing with it. And the master was not happy and basically said, he's a wretched fool, right? And so how do you unpack that? Because remember, Jesus always spoke in parables to help explain things. And again, there's a money side to this, absolutely. The talents that he's talking about could be your personal talents. Are you burying your talent and not using it for the kingdom? That's really from that perspective. What are you doing with the talents that God gave you? And that does include money. Are you doing the right things with it? So the easy first thing you say is, are you handling the gift that God gives you properly? Or are you being lazy and wretched and doing nothing with it, right? So there's the easy one, right? To me, the 2 that double it, that's easy, right? You can look at that and say, they were smart enough, they invested it, they understand the compound, the magic of compound interest that we talk about too, those things. But really it's the guy that buried it. That's where the story is, right? Why did he bury it? And it goes back to what we said before, scarcity. He was afraid. He was living in fear. He was afraid because of the master's reputation. So he said, I'll be better off burying it and giving it back to him when he returns than trying to do anything positive with it because I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of success, and I'm afraid of the repercussions of what's going to happen. And in money, if you're not investing your money, if you're not doing the right things, you got to be careful, right? Yeah. There's still a lot of people today that take their money and don't invest it. They put it under literally they get cash and they put it in the mattress. And actually with inflation, they're losing money.
Yep.
But they're so afraid to put it into the system that they're actually losing money. Yeah. And that's what you can't do either, because what is that? That's the scarcity mentality.
Yes.
Right? And there's 2 parts of that scarcity. There's the intrinsic, what's in you, and then the extrinsic factors. What's causing you to behave that way? What's the scarcity in you? And then, hey, and I'm going to be very candid with you. I had an issue with my sky zones in Maryland, COVID. Nobody wants to talk about that anymore. I don't know why. All of a sudden we had the worst experience of our lives.
No, it's a bad word.
Yeah, but in Maryland, when COVID hit, my businesses got shut down. And this is a failure for me to look beyond something. So I'm going to be very open about what I missed. Because I had friends here in Texas, then when COVID hit, they capitalized on it. They made more money. Me, I went into scarcity mode. I was like, I'm going to lose my house. I've got personal guarantees. I don't know what's going to happen bad. And what I went into is survival fight mode. And I did everything I could to try to protect what I had. And part of the problem was the extrinsic noise that was in my ear was, you're in trouble. You're going to lose everything. Nothing good came in my ear at all. And what I felt, because I grew up lower middle class, was scarcity. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose everything right now.
Yeah.
Now, the only good news about it was it motivated me to write legislation that I got passed in Maryland that ultimately saved and helped small businesses. So though I was in scarcity mode, I was also trained as a leader to always find a solution. So my solution was tied to self-preservation, but it still helped people.
Yeah.
The only issue that happened was I still buried my talent.
Yeah.
Because I was not pursuing anything that could help me further down the road. So there's that dichotomy. I'm in scarcity mode. My scarcity mode helped me write legislation, but I was scared. I was fearful because I was going to lose everything.
Wow.
So imagine juggling this in your mind. My house is going to be gone. All the money I saved, everything I did, gone, right? Because the government shut my businesses down. Then they decide, okay, you can open, but you're going to open at this capacity.
Yeah.
Money at that, right? But you fight back, you claw back, and that's where this relentless is, the work ethic. Because I was sort of on cruise control, and then COVID hit. Guess what I had to do? Brush myself off, get up, and rebuild my businesses.
Yep.
But that's a prime example where scarcity impacted me, and I missed opportunities.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and you talk a lot about opportunities, time and opportunity, and we'll talk about that at the end. I think we should use that for our conclusion. But you've touched on on something really great here, and thank you for being transparent, Paul. Not many people will admit to a weakness. We're good about pointing at other people's weaknesses, but you being transparent and showing people again how real you are. It helps because a lot of people missed out on opportunities during that time, and that's just one example that you gave. But you did touch on savings. You talk about savings a lot. The question I've asked a lot of people, and I want us to ask that question again today, is how many people think they can save their way to retirement?
Well, here's actually that question is a lot of people think they can, but none of them do it, right? I mean, so there's two parts of that. There's the thought of what it takes, but then there's the action of even you're taking those steps, right? So that's the funny thing I find with people is they do a lot of that, but they're not even putting anything in action, right? Which gets into our principles of good financial discipline is where you're headed. And the first one, and this is gearing up into the meat of the presentation, right? What are the financial disciplines that you need, these principles? And the first thing that I teach in my class is that money is a tool. See, most people, when you say that, they're like, what? They cock their head and like, what do you mean money is a tool? All money is a hammer. See, some people think money is the goal. No. Wealth is the goal. Money is a tool to build wealth.
Yeah.
And if you're going to build a house, do you try to nail the nails with a spoon, or do you get an air hammer, right? A nail gun, right? What's your tool to try to build your wealth? Now, some people, again, thrivers, because of where they come from, they have the air gun. Most people that come from a survival mentality in an upbringing, we've got the hammer. That's all we got. But you can build a lot with a hammer. And the whole point is to understand that that money is your hammer. You got to have the tool. And saving is the only way to get the hammer.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's a little hammer or a big hammer. You've just got to save to get yourself started. And that's where people stop. They go, nope, can't do it. I need $1 million to do that, and I can't get $1 million, so I'm done. No. You got to start with $1 before you get to $1 million. That's just how it works.
Or you use the compounding principle that you mentioned, compounding interest, where we're not talking about traditional savings. We're talking about savings, but with on steroids.
Well, again, and that's the whole point, is you got to get there to, you will never experience, which, I mean, this is one of them. Let's talk about the miracle of compound interest, right? You'll never experience that unless you save.
Yeah.
So you got to get to the point where, you're feeling it and you're seeing the benefit of the compound interest. My kids right now, my 2 kids, I put them in CDs, right? They've saved their money, their birthday money, and we've gotten CDs, right? And they've ended up saving a lot of money, and they're seeing some compound interest now. They're starting to, now a CD, again, if that's all you can do, a CD is going to bring a very low interest rate for you, a very low return, but it's a start.
It's a start. It's something.
It's something.
Yeah.
And at a minimum, you hope that it offsets inflation. Right? You hope that you're at a minimum staying status quo, but you have to get to the point where that hammer is big enough to build something with. But you got to understand it's a tool.
Yeah.
That is number one. Right?
Yeah.
And like I said, saving. The other part that is interesting to me is we use the word interest, right? Some people, because interest is used 2 ways. It's a 2-sided coin. You, as an investor, you receive interest, but then when you borrow money, you pay interest.
Pay it.
Right? So we're using the same word, and it depends on what side of the coin on how it's impacting you. But you got to understand both of them. You got to understand what interest you're paying or receiving. And some people don't even get that. They don't understand what's going on. And I have an example that I use with the kids that I do is buying a car, right? First off, I tell them, when you walk in to a car and that salesperson asks you how much you can afford or what do you want your payment to be, I tell them, don't you dare answer that question. That's a trap.
Yep.
Because all they're trying to do is figure out the highest interest rate they can charge you to get you in the car.
Get you to where, to that payment.
That's right. So there's a cost to it. So I have this whole sheet that I show them, and I show them the difference between 0%, 5%, 10% on what you're paying and what you're actually paying for the car. And then I do the same thing with compound interest, right? When you're receiving it. Now, I will tell you, this is probably something a little harsh or off kilter, but one of the things that people got to understand is in the market, the stock market and everything else, we're not going to get into anything complex. But like I said, I've had the privilege of meeting and spending time with uber wealthy people. Uber wealthy people do not accept 10% as a good return. The average person is told and believes that if they put their money somewhere and they're getting 10%, that they're winning. Hey, you're making money, but you're not winning. The uber wealthy, they make multipliers. They don't touch things. You read on Carnegie and all these other people, there's people that have formulas. You got to create your formula. But if they're not doubling their money, they won't do it. They're not looking for 10%.
Mm-mm.
That's their lunch money. But that's the mentality between survival and thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And hanging out with people, right? Who's in your group? I've learned more in Texas about the uber wealthy and the way they handle money and the way they invest and how they create syndicates and everything else than I ever did anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they just don't accept 10%.
Yeah, and everybody goes through the pathway, to get to that point where, because we're not here saying that everybody has to be at a certain level. That's why you're talking about the basics of it, so that everybody sees where they fall. And you start somewhere. You start with the discipline. You start with, with the traits of being successful. Then you gradually make your way to the point where you now understand high level on how to do the saving and compounding interest in your favor, as opposed to paying it, because all we know is paying it, student loans, credit cards, and this, as opposed to bringing it to our favor. And so talk a little bit more about that, about flipping the script.
Well, the first thing is debt, right? Debt is the 4-letter word, right? You know what I mean? And you got people like Gordon Ramsay out there that tries to tell you that all debt is bad. And look, I like debt. I like low debt. But I will tell you that there is something good about some debt. Now, I got a buddy of mine that I've invested with. He's uber wealthy. He's one of the best businessmen I've ever been around. He doesn't believe in debt, and he's uber wealthy. But if he used leverage, he'd triple his net worth, even though he doesn't have to, right? But there's a difference between good debt and bad debt, right? So let's talk about bad debt. Credit cards are bad debt. Let's be honest. I mean, I use a credit card a lot, but I pay it off every month. But people just aren't using as much cash, and I'm getting some points where I can get an airline ticket or something, but that's maximizing the product, right? Hey, if you use it, but I pay it off. I don't have credit card debt. So I don't want bad debt. Cars. Again, some people have to do that because of the cost of things. But eventually, your goal is to pay that car off as soon as possible, right? Your home. I think home is a good debt, because let's look at it this way. The average home, let's just say, is $350,000, right? If you pay that off and you don't have the mortgage, all you're doing with the money that you're saving from not paying the mortgage is spending it. And you've got this $350,000 asset sitting over here that's doing nothing for you. You're not maximizing it. However, if you had a mortgage for, let's just say you had a good loan LTV value on it, say you just had $200,000 mortgage on it, so you got $150,000 in equity, which is still a lot, right? You got a reasonable interest rate. They're going to come back down, right? But what could you do with that $150,000? How much compound interest can you earn on that? Right? So some debt, to me, now again, there's people say that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He should be off the air. Well, why'd you have him on the podcast?
No.
But, I like low debt. I do. I'm not saying leverage yourself out. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there's certain leverage instruments, and your home is one of them, as long as it's affordable and you're doing the right thing, that why would you ever sit there with dead money? I call that dead money. Dead money. Right? When you could take that and you could buy a rental house, or you could do something else with it, right? That's leveraging. That is maintaining your asset base.
Yeah.
And what I do, because this is a little bit higher level, but like I buy real estate. Most of the time, I don't take a loan out. I'm leveraging my money market account.
Yeah.
So I'll take out a line of credit against my own money. I'm my own bank.
Yep.
Right? Why would I want to pay, Truist Bank the interest? Right? I loan my own money to me.
And the bank will ask you for your liver, your firstborn child.
Well, see, here's how it works. There's an interest rate that you pay on a line of credit, okay? But let's just say you've got money, let's say $100,000 that you have in a money market account. You're going to buy a house for $50,000. You're going to pay interest to the institution that has the line of credit. However, you're going to make interest on the $100,000. So you get to basically double dip on the same money. So the interest you pay versus the interest that you make are offsetting. So you buy that asset at no cost basis until you sell it, then you pay back the loan that you had yourself. But the interest zeroes out or goes more in your favor, because remember, you're paying on 50 and you're making on 100. So hopefully you pick up a couple points and you're using your money. See, that's high level, but guess what you need? You need the $100,000.
Yeah.
And that's why you save money. You get the miracle compound interest, and you learn these higher level financial, and I'm going to use the word game, but these financial instruments on how you can maximize the return to yourself.
Yes. And that's where the financial education comes in, and people have to want to listen to it, because once you start talking about money, a lot of people leave the room or act like it doesn't concern them, or I'm not, because we've been programmed that we have to sit down and have that conversation. You have to earn so much money, or you have to be in a certain bracket, to sit down and have that conversation. But what we're doing here right now is letting people know that no matter what level you're at, you can sit down and have that conversation about the basics. Start from somewhere. Start somewhere, because we need to change the dynamics. We have to change in every single community, change from handing over liabilities to the generations ahead, and switch it around so that we're handing over legacies. And the education we're teaching, we're teaching this so that our kids cannot fall into the same patterns that we fell into. So I'm really glad that we're having this conversation today, because and we'll keep having them. We'll keep having them until people turn blue in the face. We'll do CPR on them.
The problem that we have is, in today's world, there's narratives, right? There's narratives that are coming at you all the time. We're constantly, our phones or TVs, I don't care where you are, but somehow, some way, society has become a society of consumption. That's why we're called consumers. So what people have been brainwashed to think is they have to have that 60-inch flat screen TV that was the thing you had to have 4 years ago. That's not worth anything. You got to get the 85-inch flat screen now, right? So that TV's junk. Throw that away. Go spend the $1,500 now on the 85. The Xbox, the one that you had 2 years ago, oh my gosh, that's so passé. Go spend the $500 on the new one. Right, and we're brainwashed into thinking that consuming is what we need to be doing to fill ourselves, and that's where Jesus comes in with the Christians. Right, you're never going to fill yourself with stuff, right? But you're never going to daggone buy your way out of debt. You're never going to consume yourself out of debt. You're never going to consume yourself into wealth. You have to create a program, and I'll tell you what, the humility part, it takes you being honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. I make this much money. That's what I make, period. That's where I am at this particular moment. Here are my bills. This is what I have left. What can I do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you saving 10% or not? Because at a minimum, you should be saving 10%.
Mm-hmm.
If you can save more, save more. But you got to get your hammer. How are you going to get your hammer? You're not going to get it by spending it.
Yeah. And the hammer eventually should turn into a Swiss knife where it has eventually it's not just the hammer, the money, it just won't be the hammer. It will be, you'll have a screwdriver, you'll have this, depending on once we start talking about diversifying what we're doing with the money, so then that's when it becomes a Swiss pocket knife, so yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. My little analogy.
But you're right. That's it. The whole point is to build your toolbox, right? Not to even stay with one hammer, to get the whole toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So you can build something bigger, better, more efficient.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not going to get there if you're out there chasing flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
You're not going to spend yourself to prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to happen.
Well, if he hit you, he didn't mean to miss you.
This is your show, not mine.
I know. Hey. So we're I know we've unpacked quite a bit, but I said at the end we kind of should touch on the time and opportunity thing, because you talk about that, the two you call them commodities, right? Two commodities that are very important for us. And every day we're passing up opportunities. Why are we passing them up? Are we passing them up because we don't have time? Are we passing them up because we don't see the value in the opportunities? Are we passing them up because we're so focused chasing shadows? Are we passing them up because the opportunity it doesn't sound as good as we want it to be, and we don't even want to pay attention to it? Why are we passing up opportunities? Unpack that for us.
Well, again, I'm going to be open and candid with you about one of the important lessons that I've learned in the past month through the Bible groups that I'm in, and it correlates back to opportunity. And I think that as Christians, right, that's what we are, one of the mistakes and again, I'll just say me, all right? This is me talking, that I've made in my life, in my Christian walk, is I always believed that if I followed the rules, if I did certain things, then yes, God is faithful and He's gonna take care of me. But the mistake that I made and that I see people make is what we do is we choose the fruit for God. We make the mistake of saying, okay, I'm going to follow these rules. I've got the Bible. I read it. If I do A, B, C, D, and E, I'm going to get fruit. And oh, by the way, God, this is the fruit that I'm getting. Okay, you don't choose the fruit. I choose it. I'm going to follow your rules, and this is what I'm going to do. And I think that how that correlates back to the two most precious commodities are time and opportunity is I think that we miss opportunities because we're choosing the fruit. That's what we're doing. That we were saying that the only opportunity that works for me is this opportunity. Mm-hmm. If I would have had that mentality, I never would have bought my first Sky Zone. Right? I would have missed so much fruit. Mm-hmm. If I would have had that mentality, I wouldn't be in Texas with the organizations that I'm part of right now. I wouldn't be in Texas surrounded by the most amazing Christian group of men that I've ever encountered in my life. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we got to do is we got to take the scales off of our own eyes. Yeah. We got to have some humility, and we got to open our minds and understand that whatever opportunity God presents is not necessarily going to correlate to what we think, what we see, what we understand. Yeah. But it's our job to obey. Mm-hmm. Obedience is where opportunity is found. You have to obey.
Wow.
And that's how that works. So the first thing that you got to do is you got to humble yourself, take the scales out of your eyes and obey and understand if God's going to do it, if he's going to bless it, believe me, it's going to be better, bigger, and the most amazing thing that you're ever going to witness, but you're not going to see it coming.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, that's a good way to kind of, wrap things up here. But the last thing that I did want to touch on, because we have to go back to the beginning of the punchline, the go get up and get it.
Yes.
What is it? What is it for you? What is it for me? What is it for your neighbor? What is it for everybody has an it. We have to figure out what that it is. What is it for Paul?
I'm to be honest with you, it's what fills your cup, right? And what I found right now is what fills my cup is helping people, communicating to people, being involved in organizations that are saving lives and changing lives, making an impact in your community, serving, and understanding that if the only person I am serving is myself, I am failing as a human being.
Yeah.
So you got to find your it. But if your it stops at you, you don't have the right it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the right it.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, this has been refreshing. I could go on and on, but I know how people's attention span is.
Well, they're like me, ADHD.
I know, I like, so I kept looking, I'm like, right at an hour, we'll kind of wrap it up. But any final thoughts? This was kind of wrapping it up, but any shout outs that you want to do to any special, like anyone, thank yous, shout outs, mentors, somebody out there that you needed to shout out to them today?
Well, again, obviously, I want to bring up Freed, FREED, people.org, right? We got a gala coming up in May 2nd here in Arlington, Texas. Look, I'm telling you, you want to talk about it, you want to make an impact. We are saving and redeeming lives. Flat out, that's happening. If there's anything that will move you, the stories that I've heard, I could cry telling you them. It is the evil that we are facing in this planet is beyond what most people could even understand, and I've seen it. So if you want to stop evil, if you want to get the bad guys off the street, you want to redeem a life, give to freedpeople.com. Second Chance Mentors. Sean, my buddy Sean, was incarcerated. He turned his entire life around, and he is keeping kids from falling in that footstep. And we're out there and we're helping these kids and we're changing lives. And guess what we're doing? We're making an impact. And that's Second Chance Mentors with the number 2ND, chancementors.org. And the only other thing I will tell anybody out there, if you are living in your own mind and you do not have a support team around you that will tell you the truth, if you are blocking the truth, or you're not letting people sharpen you, you're doing yourself a disservice. I am so blessed to have people around me that aren't afraid to tell me, hey, Paul, you're messing up. Iron sharpens iron. And I have a group of people around me that are not afraid to do that. And I have to humble myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing that. And it's changing me dramatically. So get yourself a real group of people that are going to tell you the hard truth. Oops. Tell the king that the king doesn't have clothes on, right? You know what I mean? Yep. You need people in there who are going to shoot straight with you.
Yeah.
But get involved in your community. If money is important, if it's your goal, remember, just know it's a tool, right? If adversity is going to come, but you got to have these basic disciplines. And if you do, you're going to find yourself in a much better position to overcome the adversity and thrive.
Yeah. Wow. This has been amazing. I can't conclude. I can't say anything after that. I'll water it down. So no, I'm not saying anything after that. You nailed it. I'm gonna share those links in my YouTube channel. I'll share it on Facebook. I mean, I'll share. I'm gonna share those links so people can get involved, because those are organizations that are doing some good work. So thank you, Paul. I can't even thank you enough for being here, for accepting to come on so we can have this conversation. There will be a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4. We will unpack a lot more.
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it again. I'm still ready.
Thank you so much. And thank you for pivoting, when we had technical stuff going on and we ended up doing this virtually. The next time we'll hopefully be in studio so we can, chit chat more in person.
All right.
All right. Thank you. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching the Saaghe Fogwe podcast. Bye, guys.